Language is constantly evolving. It's a living entity that changes over time. Understanding how and why it changes can help us appreciate and adapt to new linguistic trend. Language evolution is the natural process of change that languages undergo. This change occurs in various aspects of language, such as vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, and even the way we communicate. It is not a new phenomenon. Languages have evolved for thousands of years. The English language, for example, has gone through multiple stages: Old English, Middle English, Early Modern English, and Modern English. Here is a sample of two versions of Christian Lord's Prayer, one in Old English and one in Modern English. The two texts consist of different grammatical forms, word order, syntax, and sentence structures. This shows how the language has gone through tremendous changes over the course of a very long time, and it is still changing. For the changes to happen, a bunch of different factors come into play. Let's look at the factors. Language, the ever-evolving medium of human communication, is shaped by a multitude of factors. One key factor driving language change is social progress. As society evolves, our language adapts to reflect these changes. For instance, shifting attitudes towards gender and inclusivity have led to new vocabulary and changes in linguistics norms. Globalization, the interconnectedness of the world, is another major influence. Through international trade, travel, and media, languages collide and borrow from one another. This leads to the incorporation of loan words and phrases from different languages into our own. For example, the Malay words such as kitab, doktor, sekolah are actually words from Arabic. And Malay language has many loan words from other languages, and so do other languages. Pop culture, including movies, music, and social media, plays a significant role as well. It introduces slangs, catchphrases, and trends that can quickly spread through a language. Think about how terms like selfie or binge watch emerged and became widely accepted. Geography also contributes to language change. When isolated, communities meet, they influence each other's language, causing shifts in vocabulary, pronunciation, and even grammar. Generational changes are a natural part of language evolution. Younger generations often adopt new language traits while letting go of older ones. This affects on how they speak, the words they use, and even the grammar they employ. Language standardization attempts to regulate and stabilize the language. Official bodies, dictionaries, grammar guides, and education systems all play a role in this process. Standardization helps to ensure consistent communication but can also impede linguistic diversity. So let us look at some types of language change. Here we have changes in sound, analogy, semantics, and changes resulting from language contact. The Great Vowel Shift was a major transformation in Middle English during the Middle Ages. It led to changes in vowel pronunciations, such as the word name being pronounced more like Name in Middle English. In Middle English, many words ended with a silent E, which influenced the pronunciation of preceding consonants. When the final E was dropped, it affected the consonant sound. For instance, lambe in Middle English became lamb in Modern English. In Middle English, nouns and verbs often had different stress patterns. As English evolved, some words underwent a shift in stress when they changed from nouns to verbs or vice versa. An example of stress pattern change is the word record. Middle English noun, record, record or a written document. Modern English verb, record, to make a record of something. Sound change is an integral part of language evolution. The great vowel shift, consonant shift, and stress pattern change are just a few examples of how English pronunciation has transformed over time. Now, let's look into two aspects of morphological change: regularization of verbs and pluralization, which result from analogy and reanalysis. In Old English, there were strong and weak verbs. Over time, many strong verbs became weak through analogy. For example, climb, originally clum, became regularized with the ed past tense ending and became climbed. Pluralization refers to the formation of plurals in a language. In Old English, the word child was pluralized as childru. However, it became regularized to children through analogy with other plurals. Analogical change occurs when speakers use a model or pattern to reshape words or morphemes. It often simplifies language and makes it more consistent. Analogical changes like regularization and pluralization can have a profound impact on language. They streamline and regularize linguistic form, making the language more accessible and predictable. Understanding analogical changes helps us trace the historical development of language. It showcases how language adapts over time, influenced by human cognition and communication needs. It's important to note that these changes occur gradually and rarely result in a complete shift to an unrelated meaning. There are two main directions in which word meanings can change: semantic broadening and semantic narrowing. Semantic broadening involves a word's meaning becoming more general or inclusive as it ages. On the other hand, semantic narrowing entails a word's meaning becoming more specific or restricted over time. Now let's look at some examples of words that have changed in meaning. Now, as you can see, we have semantic broadening and semantic narrowing. So the word bird used to mean small fowl. Now, any winged creature. While barn used to mean place to store barley. Now it means a farm building for storage or shelter. So it has become more inclusive. And let's look at semantic narrowing. The word meat used to mean any type of food. Now it has narrowed down to the meaning of flesh of an animal. We have amelioration, pejoration, and semantic shift. Amelioration refers to the process in which the meaning of a word becomes more positive, favorable, or elevated over time. This change typically occurs when a word with a previously negative or neutral connotation evolves to have a more positive or improved sense. Amelioration can result from shifts in societal attitudes, cultural developments, or changes in language usage. Pejoration is the opposite process of amelioration. It occurs when the meaning of word becomes more negative, derogatory, or unpleasant over time. A word that was once neutral or even positive in meaning gradually takes on a more critical or unfavorable connotation. Pejoration can be the result of shifts in social norms, historical events, or changes in language usage. Now we are going to look at the relationship between languages. Well, the language family tree, it's like a vast genealogy of languages. Most of the world's languages can be traced back to a handful of common language families. At the root of this tree, we find the ancient proto-languages, the ancestors from which various languages evolved. One of the most extensive language families is Indo-European. It encompasses languages like English, Spanish, Hindi, Russian, and more. All these languages share a common origin in the Proto-Indo-European language. When languages come into contact with each other, a fascinating interplay begins. This interaction can lead to various phenomena, including borrowing, code switching, and creolization. Language borrowing is a common occurrence. One language can borrow words, grammar structures, or even the writing systems from another. This creates linguistic link between seemingly unrelated languages. For instance, let's consider English. English has borrowed extensively from French, Latin, and other languages. Words like ballet, cafe, and entrepreneur have found their way into English through borrowing. To look into the relationships between languages further, I have uploaded for you 2 videos relating to creolization and code switching. Please watch the video. Now we are actually looking at a simple roadmap of language change for English. English has undergone remarkable transformations. It evolved from Old English into Middle English, which then became Modern English thanks to a combination of historical and cultural pressures. But the journey doesn't end there. In our diverse world, languages often intertwine and create hybrids. One such example is Spanish, or Spanglish, a dynamic fusion of Spanish and English widely used in the United States, especially in bilingual communities. Do you still remember the example of words I asked you in the induction video? Sus, low-key, tea, and lit. The digital age has introduced yet another dimension of linguistic evolution: internet slang. The internet, with its unique features and constraints, has given rise to new forms of communication. Abbreviations, emojis, and memes have become part of this digital lexicon, shaping the way we express ourselves online. Well, language change is not just a mere change. It goes far beyond the words we use. First, language change acts as a mirror to a society. It can reflect and challenge cultural and social norms, as well as respond to economic and political changes. It's a powerful tool for expressing and even instigating societal shifts. Second, language is a vessel for cultural identity. Language preservation is crucial for safeguarding cultural diversity and maintaining unique identities. When languages are lost or marginalized, a part of cultural heritage disappears. Next, language change facilitates communication. The adoption of new words and expression helps us adapt to an ever-evolving world. It allows us to convey ideas more effectively, especially in a globalized society where languages constantly interact. However, it is important to recognize that language change can also create confusion and misunderstanding. Variation in language use, especially across different generations or cultures, can lead to misinterpretations and even conflicts. Bridging these linguistic gaps is an ongoing challenge. As we navigate the intricate world of language change, of course we will encounter a variety of attitudes towards it. First, there's purism. Some argue that language should be preserved in its pure form, untouched by outside influences from other languages or cultures. They believe in maintaining linguistic traditions and resisting any changes that deviate from established norms. For instance, in French, language purists and authorities have historically sought to resist the influx of English words into the French language, especially in domains like technology and business. They argue for the use of French equivalents or neologism instead of adopting English terms. An example of this is the French term courriel, C-O-U-R-R-I-E-L, courriel, which was introduced as a replacement for email to maintain the purity of the French language. On the other side of the spectrum, we have tolerance. Many view language as a dynamic and living entity that should be allowed to change and evolve naturally. They embrace linguistic diversity and recognize that language must adapt to reflect the evolving needs of society. And then there's humor. For some, language change is a playful and creative process. They enjoy the quirks that emerge as language evolves. They celebrate linguistic diversity and find humor in the ever-changing expressions and vocabulary. These three attitudes represent the complex relationship between language and culture. While some seek to preserve tradition, others advocate for linguistic evolution, and some find joy in the journey of language change. Ultimately, our attitudes toward language change shape how we communicate, connect, and relate to the world around us. Language change isn't just an academic curiosity, it has real-world impacts. It can affect the way we communicate, understand our history, and even influence our culture. Recognizing these impacts allows us to appreciate the dynamic nature of language. In conclusion, our journey through the world of language change has been both enlightening and thought-provoking. We've gained insights into the intricate processes that govern how languages evolve and adapt to the ever-changing world around us. As you continue your linguistic studies, remember that language is a living entity constantly in flux. Embrace the beauty of this evolution and let it inspire your exploration of the endless, fascinating realm of language and communication. Thank you all for your participation in this exploration of language change. I hope you leave with a deeper understanding of the intricate dance of linguistic evolution. Keep studying, keep exploring, and keep celebrating the dynamic nature of language. See you in our next video.